Well, thanks everyone for joining us today. Actually, let me see if I can adjust. Do you see the like a grayed out area where my Zoom controls are, or you just see the slides nice and clean? Perfect. Sometimes it plays with you, so I wanted to make sure you weren't seeing messiness on my screen. That way I can see a few of you and see what's going on. Thank you all so much for joining us today for our first CNNCTS Community Conversations. We're going to focus on our campus connections. We have a couple different components of CNNCTS, but we're going to focus on what's going on with our university partners to start. And we have a whole series coming throughout the rest of the fall and into the new year. We'll talk a little bit more about that, but I'll start by introducing myself. I'm Megan Jennings. I'm a research ecologist at San Diego State University, and I co-lead the CNNCTS project with our colleagues at the Climate Science Alliance. And I have the great fortune of working with a whole crew of really great people on this wonderful project. And our goal here today was just to share a bit about what CNNCTS is and how you can engage. You'll hear a bit today about what our teams are doing in one component of our project. And as I said, we'll have a whole series, so you'll get a chance to hear more about different aspects of CNNCTS as we go on. And after you hear a little bit about what we're doing on the university side of things, we're going to open it up into a Q&A to hear what questions you might have or ideas you might have about connecting with community, connecting with other universities while we have these partners that will be talking, who will be talking today. That's not the only folks that we're working with, and we're always looking to expand our networks and engage with more people because we can do more together. So I keep saying the word CNNCTS. So I'm gonna, oops, went one too far. So I'm gonna explain what that means. We love a good acronym in academia here. So that stands for the Collaborative of Native Nations for Climate Transformation and Stewardship. And that's a mouthful, so we call it CNNCTS, in part because it is about connections. This project was born out of a history of working together. The Climate Science Alliance and San Diego State University, along with some of the partners you're going to hear from today, have done a number of projects and spent time coming together and talking about what priorities are to bring together Western science and traditional knowledge and Indigenous stewardship for climate adaptation, climate response, and climate resilience within our communities and our ecosystems. And so at the end of 2022, there was an opportunity when the California legislature allocated funding for climate action research. That money went to the University of California system, and it was available to any California institution of higher education. And because we have this history of working together across this landscape that you see on the map here with all the communities that you see listed in the places that you might recognize across Southern California with their traditional names here, we wanted to put that money into and that research into the hands of tribal partners and tribal communities to envision a future where Indigenous stewardship plays a leading role in that climate adaptation, because we need to better represent the connections between human communities and natural landscapes, and that's no better embodied than in traditional perspectives of our relationships with land. And so I think we have a lot to learn in Western science practices and in academic spaces about how we can work better together. And that's part of what CNNCTS is all about, is working together with community members. So you can see here where our efforts are intended to work with tribal communities, many of the names you see here, across Southern California, from what is now known as Santa Barbara down to the Mexico border and even beyond, because the border crossed people, not the other way around. And then from the Arizona border to the coast. So we wanted to be really inclusive and invite lots of different people to the table. And what we ended up with was a project that had sort of 5 main focal areas. Advancing science-informed climate action, which is what you're going to hear about today, that takes place in part at our universities and engages our students and our faculty and staff, but also community and making community feel welcome in these places. Translating knowledges to practice in living labs, putting adaptation into action through demonstration projects and pilot projects, expanding landscape stewardship pathways, and supporting social entrepreneurship that can really be the economic engine for communities working towards stewardship and having that be supportive and sustainable for the future. And at the bottom of this slide, you can see all of the partners that we have coming to the table. So we have tribal governments, tribal serving nonprofits, our university partners who are going to be featured here today, as well as some federal partners where we're working to support co-stewardship and collaboration on the public lands that are now managed as public lands that are the ancestral lands of tribal communities, and focusing on where we can work together to be more effective in stewardship practices. And of course, as I said, San Diego State works in collaboration with the Climate Science Alliance to coordinate this group of people, but everything you hear today and in all our subsequent sessions will be about how this has been visioned, led, and guided by these different partners. We are here to support and connect, but this vision comes from community, and it is continued to be guided by community. And we hope what moves forward is also supporting community. So as I mentioned, we kind of have these 5 main focal areas. Throughout the fall and winter, as I said, we're going to be having a separate session. I'll show you the dates for those. Oh no. Can you still hear me? Okay, sorry, my internet has cut out a couple of times today. And it just made the sound like it cut out. We'll be doing these sessions. I'll give you the dates as we go, but you'll get to hear from some different partners. So today, as I said, is about our campus connections. It's about the work within our academic partners at our universities to connect within our campuses and then connect beyond the campuses to community. So I'll tell you more about what we'll be doing at our upcoming sessions as we move towards the end, but you're going to get to hear from some great people doing really interesting work. And first, I'm going to pass it over to my colleague, Becca Lewison, who helps guide that Advanced Science Informed Climate Action group and helps coordinate us and keep us moving forward. So I'll pass it to you, Becca.
Thanks, Megan, and great to be here today. And happy to be able to talk and sort of kick things off. As Megan said, Connects is the name of our project, but it really is about connecting what's happening on our campuses to elevating knowledges and supporting tribal-led stewardship and climate adaptation, action, and resilience. So I wanted to just start things by talking about this first focal area of advancing science-informed climate action. I'm Becca Lewison, if we haven't met before. I'm also at San Diego State, and my pronouns are she, her. Megan, yes, you're advanced. Okay, so what is this first focus area about? It really is about connecting what's happening on campus to off, across campuses, focusing on co-producing and exchanging knowledges, Indigenous knowledge and Western science knowledge, and really elevating interdisciplinary cross-campus curriculum and research opportunities that are focused on tribal-led stewardship and are focused on using the engine of our institutions or academic institutions in the shared mission. So we have 2 general areas that we focused on. So the first one, actually, can I move? No, you can't see. Can you see my arrow moving? No. Okay. Anyway, on one side of the screen, it says co-production and co-generation. So what have we been doing there? We've been working to strengthen the curriculum. So the courses that we're offering on campus, trying to, you'll see, stitch them together both. So we're providing a greater portfolio of courses on campus that engage students and community members in research and learning opportunities. And we've also tried to connect research to traditional knowledge and traditional practices with building on existing research efforts like this that you see highlighted here. This Resilient Restoration Project is a fantastic example of that, but also identifying new research opportunities. Yeah, thanks so much. So the campuses, obviously SDSU, that Megan and I are both from, and other colleagues you'll hear about from today, are one of the campuses, but we're just one. So UC Riverside is critical in this initiative, as has CSU Long Beach been to this. We're always looking to expand more. So if you happen to be a partner from an academic institution interested in joining Connects, we would love to connect and expand our network even more. And the last thing I just wanted to share, if you could advance the slide, is just an example of what does this look like. So earlier, before the start of this semester, we put together with Climate Science Alliance, this is an example of some of the fantastic materials that they've been helping for this project as the co-leads. This document, which really was the beginning of this initiative, sharing it broadly, trying to highlight the courses that we already have on our different campuses. You can see that on the one side of the screen where the 3 campuses are listed, and we've been identifying the courses that explore climate action through a California American Indian perspective. And again, this is exactly the type of thing that Connects is trying to do, which is connect what's happening both across campuses to what's happening in lots of communities across the area. And I think that's all I wanted to say. Yeah, so I'm going to pass it over to another colleague from SDSU who's critical to the Connects project, which is Dr. Flores Renteria.
Thank you, Megan. Thank you, Megan. I'm so happy to be here. I feel the luckiest to be part of this team, and it's an honor to be sharing with all of you the work that we do at San Diego State. Yeah, my name is Silvia Flores Renteria, and I'm an associate professor in the Department of Biology. And there are my links there if you need to reach out to me after. Next, please. So I'm here representing a great group of people, like the research team at San Diego State. Megan Jennings is part of it, Janet Franklin, David Lipson, and myself. And we have assembled a very amazing team of students and postdocs. So Ali Hopp and Vince Rivas are master's students working on the OAK project, along with our postdoc, Clarissa Rodriguez. I think the letters are a little bit shifted, but probably you can figure it out. Clarissa Rodriguez is our postdoc also working in the OAK project. Then we have an undergrad, Camille Mobapagian, who has been working on the Agave project, and Karina Cerda is working on the Pinyon Pine project, and Brooke Rose is another postdoc working on the niche modeling of several species, very important, culturally important, ecologically important species. Next, please. And here I have put these 3 plant species that allow us to show you how we connect with the community. So starting from the right, so we have a pine, a pinyon pine, the cone of this pinyon pine, and we have been working on this species. I just want to take the opportunity to share with all of you the results that we're finding and the importance of this. So these species that we have in the south of California, the populations are actually a different species that is not being recognized federally as a different species. And it's very urgent that we do that because it is dying massively as a consequence of the climate change, and it's very culturally important. It's food staple for our tribal communities, and we're losing it in our own eyes. So we've been working with the Cleveland National Forest and other Forest Service areas, and with our communities. So I'm gonna move next to the left. We have agave shawia, or the Shaw's agave, which it grows in Cabrillo National Monument. And in the past, we think that it used to have a larger distribution, but now that's the only place where we can find it as a natural environment in Cabrillo National Monument. But unfortunately, this plant is not reproducing successfully. It's not producing viable seeds, maybe because it doesn't have the proper pollinator anymore, and is struggling to reproduce. So we are investigating whether the plants that you see in those pictures, all of those are clones, or if they are reproducing through seeds, and what is the genetic diversity. So our undergraduate, Camille Movafagian, she has found that this population at Cabrillo National Monument has lower genetic diversity compared to all of the other populations that we have in Mexico, because the others are only in Mexico. So we need to do something about this plan for sure, and we are starting to developing some conservation strategies for this plant. And this is also very important. This plant is edible, and our tribal communities have used it for many different purposes. Then moving to the left, talking about the oaks. You know, oaks are super culturally important for our tribal members. And I just put here Santa Margarita Ecological Reserve. This is a reserve that is managed by SDSU. And we have one of our populations that we are working on collected from Santa Margarita Ecological Reserve. But we also work with our tribal partners to collect acorns from the reservations, from their lands. And we are very thankful for allowing us to have access to their lands. And we collected those acorns. Can we move to the next one, Megan, please? So we collected these acorns to subject them to some studies to identify resilient populations. And before we move into that, hopefully you can see in the picture at the bottom, we have two varieties. And there are two pictures there that you could see. One of these varieties is furry, it's yellowish, whitish, and because it has hairs. And we think that that adaptation, that's something that conferred them drought tolerance and be able to cope with climate change, hopefully. And the picture on the left, you see the leaf is greenish. And that population, those populations distribute more along the coast of the distribution of this species, which goes until all the way to Northern California and also goes to Baja California. But here in Southern California, we have both of these varieties. So we subjected these acorns from these two different varieties and different populations into an experiment with regular water, normal amount of water, and with a drought to see how they will respond. And we found that the agrifolia, these bars in purple, we see that the agrifolia under normal conditions grow larger, but actually has a larger effect when they are subjected to drought. Whereas the Oxyadenia bars, the ones in red, they seem to don't have that large effect. So maybe the drought doesn't impact them as much. And regarding the genomic analysis that we're doing to perform to assess if they have genetic diversity, we see that, and the bars at the bottom, they look very similar. The genetic diversity is low overall. That goes from 0 to 1. You can see that it's closer to 1, I mean, to 0 for both of them, but it is, the difference is not that large, really. So if we go to the next one, all of these seedlings or trees that we have in the experiment, we rematriate them. So we took them back to the reserves that we took them from, the lands that they were from, and most of them. And we work with La Jolla and Campo, for example, to have days in where we were going back and planting the seedlings there, or these baby trees. We also have contributed to supporting them on the Earth's Days, and we actually were giving the trees away to the community so that they can put them in their gardens. We know how to eat the acorn. You can see in a picture on the right. You can see Ali grinding an acorn, and then we have the honor, the privilege to have the shawi or the atole of this acorn in San Antonio, Necua. We also have been working with Campo, helping them to develop an edible garden with native plants as well. And you can see some of the input from the children from the schools in that picture at the top, and saying, what do you want to see in your community garden? And the kids were doing that. And just briefly, lastly, just to finish my participation in the next slide, if we can go. For us, it's very important to highlight that borders, as Megan was saying, borders are not going to stop us. We have our representation of the Kimiyai in Mexico as well. And we have the honor to work with them. We take students to San Jose La Zorra, San Antonio Negpa, and La Huerta, and soon, hopefully, we'll take them to Juntas de Neji, all of them in Baja California. And you can see some of the cool activities that the students have been learning, and how to play piak, right? That's on the top left, and how to eat the hesperojaca, the flowers, how to process them and eat them, same as the Peyton arborea. So those are edible native plants that are super nutritious and super valuable. How to eat the prickly pear, all of us got a lot of spines, but that was worth it. How do they make their own tortillas, how to do the basketry and make these very beautiful pendants. So with that, I will pass it to the next. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Yuvia, for walking us through. I just wanted to add that it's been wonderful to have all of these research components that she talked about that we've been participating at SDSU, guided by tribal voices, by the tribal working group that the Climate Science Alliance has been convening. And with the Connects partnership, that's only expanded. We've only come up with even more ideas and more partnerships, in particular focused on these important food, fiber, and medicine plant relatives. So that's been really wonderful. And I'll add your Q&A, please add those as the speakers go. We have many of the folks, even though you're going to only hear from a few folks from each team in the presentations, many of the team members are here today. And so your questions can be answered by any of them as we go. So I'm going to pass it next to our other partner at San Diego State, who's going to talk a little bit more about what we're doing with students and our Native Resource Center, Dr. Chilcote.
Hello, everyone. My name is Olivia Chilcote, and I am Liseño from the San Luis Rey Band of Mission Indians, and I'm also an associate professor of American Indian Studies here at SDSU, and my pronouns are she, her. So some of what we've been doing on campus, myself and others in the American Indian Studies Department and the Native Resource Center, the ways that we've been connecting across campus. So our American Indian Studies Department has been actively incorporating and updating and modifying curriculum within our department to kind of enhance what we already have in alignment with the goals of the Connects program. And so by doing so, we are trying to have more students, in our classes so they can be exposed to this really important material. And I think it's something that really resonates really well with our students because climate change and these issues are things that they're witnessing in their everyday lives and want to know more about. And so to be able to have that Indigenous perspective, and especially having it be from here in Southern California specifically, where they are going to school here. So we are really putting a lot of effort into advertising these classes across campus so that we can get students from every kind of major. And we generally have students in American Indian Studies classes from across the whole campus as it is, but really trying to target specific students who again would have a real interest in some of these topics. And so part of that too is facilitating various public lectures for the campus community so that we can be in conversation with each other and building that community specifically on campus. And so in order to do that, there's been a lot of strategic collaborations that we've been building, specifically with the Native Resource Center, which is on campus here, and ensuring that the students who are, who are at the Native Resource Center, working at the Native Resource Center, are engaging with these topics as well. But also they have a wider reach too, and the community. So we're able to just reach a broader audience in that sense. And then also collaborating with our program that we have, a unique program that we have here on campus called Ilmash UCHOP, which is a Kumeyaay way of saying you think. And so it's a mentorship program that Native students are enrolled in, and it's recently expanded to be a 4-year program, and they get their tuition covered as well. So trying to, again, really integrate the Native students into the programming and have it reach a wider audience on campus. Next slide. So, and then connecting with community. So we have been fortunate to kind of expand on our goals as an American Indian Studies department as is, since the ideas, the foundation of American Indian Studies as a field is about connecting with tribal communities, having tribes be at the forefront and leading the research, et cetera, that we even do as American Indian Studies scholars. So this has been a way to, again, just kind of enhance some of those methods and values that we hold already. So we have been able to invite more guest lecturers from various tribal nations and tribal communities to come to our classes and to speak to students. And we have been, particularly attentive to bringing tribal people from the tribal communities that are here in San Diego County, because again, we are, very attuned to place-based understandings. And so we want students, who are here in San Diego at SDSU to be engaging with and learning from and learning with the tribal people of this area. And we've had some on-campus workshops as well. For example, in my California Indian class this past spring, I was able to bring, with the help of Connects, authors and contributors to the Yamai volume, which is an anthology of feminine perspectives across Indigenous California. And so the editors of this volume are Lisenio, and I also had one of our other Connects partners, Dr. Teresa Greger, was able to zoom in and talk about her contribution to this volume. And they spoke on the volume specifically, and there's a lot of connections within this text related to relationships with the land and plants and other than human beings. And they were able to share that with my class, and it was also open, to anyone to attend this event. And they also had a really fun kind of like art component to it as well, where there was collage making that was happening related to the themes coming up in the text itself. And so that was a really great way to bring the community in terms of, the tribal people who are speaking on these topics, but then also other just community members, on campus and then also off campus, who were able to attend. And so I think there's, it was a really powerful experience. And so there's plans to have other workshops like this connected to our classes and other speakers that are being hosted here through the Native Resource Center to have those kinds of experiences as well with the larger community. And then a really exciting collaboration has been with the Native Resource Center and the Native and Indigenous Research and Arts Symposium. This is going to be in this coming spring, 2025 will be the 5th year that it's going to be happening. And we're all really excited that Connects is partnering with the Native Resource Center to help expand the conference itself and to have it be a space where the partners for Connects can come and present the research and that they're doing for this grant. And so we're really excited that it'll be able to, be a larger event and be a way to bring in more community on campus and be a really great way of sharing what's been going on. And the next slide. And so then in terms of our relationships and reciprocity, kind of what I mentioned before, as American Indian Studies as a department, as a field, that's sort of what we're all about, is centering relationships and reciprocity, trying to do research in respectful ways with the knowledge of how research has been done very negatively in tribal communities. So that's something that we're always very cognizant of in everything that we do. And so again, the Connects grant has been a really great way to just enhance and further some of those ideals that we already have as a department. So it's really helping to just continue strengthening relationships that we already have with certain tribal partners, but then also expanding those as well. And again, being very attentive to the land that we're on and centering San Diego-based tribes, but also Southern California tribes in general. And we're really happy that we're able to build further these connections of reciprocity through just having more engagement of our students, staff, and faculty with tribes on their land. So creating opportunities for student staff and faculty on campus here to volunteer, to have just more opportunities to get out and be in community with various tribal partners out on the land, just getting out of the classroom and into these spaces, which is so important and so enriching for the students' overall educational experience. And showing that we want to continue to build these kinds of relationships. It's not just like a one-sided situation, and being able to provide those tools and like that mentality into our students, I think is something that's really important and something that we are really making, furthering that concerted effort on how we can teach the students that and have it really be ingrained within our curriculum, and how, again, it's just foundational to American Indian Studies based theories, methods, is all about how to be in relation and, the concept of relationality. So how we can do that, have it so integrated within our curriculum, but to then have those real life experiences connected to it is just really important. And so we're, again, able to do that through not only our American Indian Studies curriculum, but in partnership too with our LMASH UCHOP program that I mentioned before, that mentoring program with Native students. So having ways for Native students to get out there and just be in connection with everyone. But yeah, it's been such an amazing experience to be a part of this and be a part of this team. So I'm just really grateful for you all and for everything that we've been able to do. And I'm excited to just keep this going. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Olivia. I'm really excited too. The partnership with American Indian Studies and the Native Resource Center has been a newer one for me. And I've been so excited to have everybody come to the table, bringing great ideas, sharing different resources for curriculum so that people aren't just getting American Indian perspectives in the American Indian Studies Department, that we're bringing it to geography and biology and sustainability and environmental studies, because it doesn't belong just in one place. And so that's been really wonderful to work with you all here at SDSU, and looking forward to field trips and guest speakers and our NERUS event, the symposium in the spring here at SDSU. But that's not the only thing we have going on. So beyond SDSU, we also have wonderful things going on, both with prior partners as well as some newer partners. So next, I'm going to pass it to my colleague, Helen Regan at UC Riverside, to talk about what they're doing on their end of things.
Hi there, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here to present what we're doing here at UCR. And I'm here representing the research components and also the education and student support components of UCR's involvement in Connects. I could go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So there's a number of people at UCR who are involved in this Connects initiative. I have a few students and a postdoc in my lab who are working on research aspects of our Connects involvement. So Patrick Lawton is a PhD student in the biophysics graduate program. Nick Graver is an employee of the National Park Service at Joshua Tree, and he's doing a master's degree in my lab. It will probably extend that to a PhD. Greg Backus is a postdoc who has been working in my lab for a while now, and he also worked predominantly on the resilient restoration project that Becca Lewison referred to earlier. And then I have about 5 undergraduate students who are working on a project that is collecting data on threatened and endangered species across California, so we can analyze what the biggest threats and problems are. And we're working with Brooke Rose and Janet Franklin at SDSU on that. And here are 2 students who were presenting our results at the Ecological Society of America in the summertime. And so all of those people that I just mentioned are very much immersed in the research aspects of this project, which I'll describe in some future slides. But we also have student support and student internships through the UCR Natural Reserves, and that component is led by Kim Hammond, who is, I see her in the attendee list here, and she's the person in that bottom middle slide who I think is doing rabbit ears in the blue, who's doing rabbit ears. And then, and I'll talk a little bit about the program that she's leading as part of Connects. And then we're also partnering with the Native American Students program. Joshua Gonzalez, he leads that program. And as part of Connect, they're putting on events such as seminars and conferences. Let me have a look. One of their conferences is the annual Medicine Ways Conference and Bird Singing Gathering. And they have a whole host of programs and events, also lecture series and workshops and so forth. And where Kim Hammond and I are in conversation with the Native American Student Program to try and put on a joint seminar or seminar series that is joint Native American and biology related topics. Also, the Native American Student Program has just opened up a Native American garden on our campus. They were instrumental in getting support for that and get it happening. And that has just been opened up to UCR recently. It's right in the middle of campus. Next slide, please. So we are also connecting with institutions outside of UCR. The research component in particular could not happen without Janet Franklin, Brooke Rose, and their teams at SDSU. We've also been partnering with Megan and Yuvia at SDSU on the Resilient Restoration project, which connects is, as far as UCR's involvement, is an extension of the Resilient Restoration project. And then in terms of course curriculum and the suite of courses that Becca Lewison described earlier, we partner with California State University Long Beach and UC Santa Barbara in providing a list of courses that in totality can provide a robust curriculum that addresses Native American issues and also land stewardship, conservation, and restoration. Next slide, please. So part of our research involves working with the Climate Science Alliance and the Tribal Working Group. So in the Resilient Restoration Project, which we are continuing in this Connects project, we are looking at the effects of climate change on native plants that have cultural significance to tribal nations in Southern California. So we have been building spatially explicit population models of these plants to figure out what the effects of climate change are going to be on those plants and what some of the mitigation strategies could be. So, and where on the landscape are the threats going to be the most serious, and what we can do about restoring or replanting or translocating. So we have a very tight partnership with the Tribal Working Group in that work. They guide the modeling questions that we have, and they guide the species that we work on, and ultimately they guide what the conservation actions will be or could be to address the threats to these plant population models, or the threats to these plant populations. And we continue with that partnership relationship through the Climate Science Alliance. Next slide, please. So this is just a slide that is summarizing the type of research we do. So we use published data on plant demography, so survival rates, numbers of seeds produced, how many seeds germinate, what the seeds, how often they germinate, and so forth. And we turn that data into what's called a stage structured population model. So all that means is that there's different stages of a plant's life that are represented in the model, and they can advance or die or live, grow, produce seeds, and seeds germinate. And we work with Janet Franklin's lab, and I believe Brooke Rose has been doing most of this work on linking our population model with the spatially explicit maps or distributions of these species in current times, and also projected into the future under different climate change scenarios. And in doing that, we can then illustrate where on the landscape a plant species is going to maybe be stable which kind of is like the gray line, where it's going to decline. In some cases, maybe even where it increases. And in that way, we can kind of rank or prioritize what areas to spend time on restoration. And then we can test out some restoration activities in the model as well. So for instance, if translocation or assisted migration is going to be, or managed relocation is going to be a restoration tactic that is considered, we can actually try that out in the model to see what the extent of success would be, the extent of population increase would be if we tried out that strategy. Okay, next. And so we're continuing on with these species. We're looking at a number of oak species, pines, and also Joshua trees as well. We also have a course curriculum and student engagement component at UCR. So I mentioned on the left-hand side of this slide, the multi-campus courses. Becca reminded me that we have 2 more on this list. I put these 2 because they're the 2 that I teach, but there's also restoration ecology that is taught by Laura Lee Larios at UCR, and then a advanced undergraduate seminar course that's taught by a variety of people, including Kim Hammond. And these are courses that either already have built-in components on Indigenous stewardship or Indigenous knowledge, or will have modules built into them covering those. So for instance, in global change biology, I have used materials developed by the Climate Science Alliance and their network as modules in my online global change biology course. So in that course, we look at cultural burning, and we look at treaties 101. We look at some of the issues, the very complex issues around conservation and Indigenous land. And these concepts can also be built into any of the other courses. We can talk more about this in the question time if anyone's interested, but there are some challenges to students taking courses at UCR in the biology major, because we have so many students in it. And then another component that we have, which is really exciting, are I think it's exciting because it blends research and education. And these are internships at the Natural Reserve System run by UCR. So UCR runs a number of reserves. And as part of the reserves, they have a program which are providing internships over the summer to undergraduate students. And the idea of this is to provide inclusive field-based research experiences to underrepresented students. And so students will be partnered with faculty mentors who will guide them in their research, and they'll conduct their research on the reserves. And that research can be ecological, but it can also be archaeological, anthropological, but it just so happens that most of the research that's done is ecological. And we could go to the next slide, please. And so I just wanted to showcase one of the research projects from a Native American student who has been part of that internship project, Marshall Tracy. And he is an environmental science major at UCR, and he has been working on a project Kim can chime in later on which reserve, I forget which reserve, but working on desert tortoises. So these have radio trackers on them, and they also have cameras around their burrows. And the goal of the research is to look at the behavior of these desert tortoises under climate change, because behavioral responses can give us a clue about how to best manage desert tortoises. So Marshall Tracy, I believe, has been in the program for a couple of years now. And Marshall has a really interesting backstory because he has done a lot of work on with tribes and education and supporting students, tribal students in Southern California, and wants to continue doing that once he gets his degree. So I'd like to finish on that note, because I think this is a great example of blending research and education, and the really great hands-on activities and that Connects is providing to students, and also to faculty who also benefit from this greatly as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Helen. And we had the good fortune of having Marshall join a team of panelists from the Connects project at the Ecological Society of America conference, which I think it was very brave of an undergraduate student to come and join those organizational team leads to talk about his experience. It was wonderful to have him. So I'm very pleased to be able, oh, here's another desert tortoise. I'm very pleased to hand it next to my colleague, Dr. Teresa Greger, who I had the good fortune of meeting a number of years ago through the Tribal Working Group. But this was another new partnership. We had worked together and talked in a different capacity. And when this project came along in her capacity as a professor at Cal State Long Beach, we decided to join in on this project along with a number of her colleagues. So we've been really excited to have a new partnership emerge through Connects with this relationship. So I'll pass it over to you, Teresa.
Auka, Meiha, Meiyu to everybody that's here. Can you hear me okay? I'm looking at you, Megan. Okay, good. So I share an office with Dr. Kelly Stewart also. She's in the room as well, but she's not on my screen. She is in the background. And our other colleague from our research team, Ben Hagedorn, is on the line or on the Zoom as well. So thank you for this lightning talk. As Megan said, I've been working on Connects on a couple different fronts, but this is my hat with Cal State Long Beach. I'm an associate professor here. I was recently appointed as director of the program in American Indian Studies. We're also known as being the being on the site of Pavungna, which we take very seriously, and are really working on restoration efforts within the matrix of the administration's oversight of Pavungna and all of the legal hurdles and obstacles that tend to stand in our way. Can you advance the slide? So this is our team at Cal State Long Beach. I'm the co-PI, and these are my faculty collaborators. Dr. Stewart is teaching American Indian or Indigenous Philosophies of Sustainability. It's a 300 level course here. We get quite typically a lot of biology and environmental studies majors that come into that class. And then, of course, our own American Indian Studies minors and certificate holders. But it's typically predominantly like outside of our department. But it's a wonderful class, and she's doing really great things in it, and I'll get to that in a minute. And then Dr. Laura Huning is from the Department of Civil Engineering and Construction Management in the College of Engineering. She's a hydrologist and is an amazing scholar who brings to our project a lot of knowledge that's outside of the scope of mine and Kelly's educational and humanities background. But I think it's adding that whole component that Connects is supposed to be trying to integrate, and that's marrying sort of Indigenous knowledge or traditional ecological knowledge with Western science and tools and resources. So we're really honored to have her on our team, and I'm learning a lot from her and from Ben. And so Ben Hagedorn is a geochemist in the Department of Geological Sciences and the College of Math and Natural Sciences. And I met them because they reached out to me and asked if I wanted to work or if I was working on anything related to water. And I thought, well, this isn't going to work. And then the call for Connects kind of came into being. And so then I just sort of roped Kelly into the project because I know she's a part of the Tongva Basket Weavers Association, and she's really been immersing herself in that restoration of Tongva basket making tradition, like harvesting the materials and going out on the land. And I just thought it was a good fit. And so far we're brainstorming and we're trying to do really good things. And I think we're finally making progress. So you can advance the slide, Megan. So the way that we're connecting with community within the grant, we really just wanted to see how all three of our colleges and all four of our areas of sort of expertise and knowledge could maybe bridge some gaps between the university and our tribal community members, create learning and research opportunities for our students. And we really did want to work around the connection between cultural burning practices and groundwater retention. And that was just sort of marrying up things that I was interested in. And then the cultural burning, you know, as everybody has been talking about, well, at least Uvia talked about it, the need to have sort of a healthy ecological landscape for our basket making materials, our plant and our food sources. And then groundwater retention. So we asked the question, what is the impact? I'm not sure that we're going to get quite to that detailed level of research in this iteration, but we're moving towards just understanding both better and bringing those questions into the classroom for students to consider. And then we're still proposing like different ways of advancing that in the field. So we have one graduate student that we've already brought on who is working closely with Ben. And we're in the process of trying to get 3 other undergraduate assistants. So another one for Lori and then 2 in the program on American Indian Studies. And we have 1 person identified right now. So it's just a matter of trying to get the paperwork completed. And we're hoping that then they can help us you know, reach out to the community, schedule our field trips and our speakers that we're planning to have come in the fall towards the end of the semester and then into the spring. Ben and Lori already identified lots of publicly available data sources around water resources in primarily Central California. And so they were very much interested in working with the Tule River tribe because, you know, we want to bring to bear like, you know, the information that's already out there, but see what's going to be useful to the tribe. So they have made progress and they're going to meet with representatives from Tule River in a couple of weeks. And there's already a lab that Ben goes to with students, a research area that he goes to with students near Porterville. So we're just hoping that this will be a good fit and that the tribe will find the information and the tools and resources that we want to offer useful for them. And then, you know, we'll see where that relationship goes. But we're really excited at the prospect right now. And that's kudos to Ben and Lori. I've also been in conversation with Emily Burgueño, which a lot of people know from her various work in San Diego County. She's my cousin, but we do like to work together. And so she's the chair of the Kumeyaay Land Conservancy. And we talked about having a field trip to 1 or 2 of their sites, if we can do it in one day, and bringing students down. And then maybe, and possibly developing a plan to conduct remote sensing of an analysis of their groundwater on these properties, because some of them already have trees that propagate not only like fruit, but acorns and other food sources for the Kumeyaay. And so they're very much interested in having these sites that they're conserving become really points of access for the community where there's restoration and of course propagation. So when I talked about the water and research around that, she said they didn't have that kind of data. And so she was really interested in hearing from our colleagues. And so we're hoping that can be a field trip in the spring. We're also, Dr. Stewart is developing a conversation for us to potentially take students to UCSB, the Cheadle Center, which might be one of our learning labs, right? I don't know if it is or not. And so we're hoping that could be another field trip. And then in her class, Dr. Stewart is also basing a core part of her students' assessment around caring for native California plants. So she gave them seeds, and some of them are already growing and propagating, and she has this whole schedule for them to develop that relationship. Like they need to name the plant, take it with them, write reflections about it on its growth, and really nurture it. And then she's hoping to plant it in a space that could really use the restoration of native plants. And so we're excited to see her results. She's going to compile an analysis of the students' engagement and interaction, and how healthy they can grow their plants. She's going to create a report from that at the end of the semester to show the impact to students when they are given, I think she said poppy, the California poppy, sage, and
Deergrass and Juncus.
Deergrass and Juncus were the 4 seedlings, types that she handed out in her class. So we're really looking forward to those results. And then can I have the next slide? So our relationships and reciprocity, this is something that I've kind of adapted for our team. So I talked about it. When I think about relationships and reciprocity, I think about these 4 areas kind of within my own praxis, but just the way that I see intellectual frameworks and methodologies in American Indian Studies kind of operate. So I'm going to explain these a little bit more, and that'll be the end of my presentation. You can advance the slide. So I'm a writer by trade, a literary analyst by trade. All of my degrees are in literature and writing studies, so I'm definitely a humanist, and I have that humanistic approach from a liberal arts education. And this term, survivance, some of you may have heard of it in various iterations, comes from Gerald Visner, who's Anishinaabe. He's taught at Berkeley for many years, and he's considered sort of a postmodernist thinker and writer. But I like this term for a lot of different reasons. And so I have kind of here bolded at the top that one of the quotes from his book about survivance is, "Native imagination, experience, and remembrance are all the real landscapes of liberty." And I think when we think about this term as being sort of a combination, I tell my students it's survival and resistance, but I also think we need to think about thriving and thrivance within it. And so if we can have all 3 of those elements combine in the work that we're doing, so that we're not erasing Native presence, we're not erasing Native knowledge, we're not sublimating sort of our language and our existence, I think then we are activating this mode of survivance. So I have all of these quotes, and people can read them later, but this comes from a text where he expands upon his work, and it really does come from a real estate term about the right of succession of or the reversion of an estate. So if you think about inheriting the land, or who are the original heirs of the land, it really fits well within the context of Native studies and sort of land back and land restoration, and especially thinking about adaptation for climate transformation in the future. Next slide. And then in terms of synthesis and synergy, I really think they have to do with this other concept called synchronicity, which is a term I picked up from Robert Warrior, who is like a historian as well. So synchronicity is when you can be doing research kind of through looking across different centuries and different time periods and geographical landscapes. Warrior uses this term in his writings as a method where he says he's reading widely, historically, and existentially to conduct his research. And the result, he claims, helps us discern patterns and overlapping themes between historical data, so stories, oral tradition, indigenous knowledge, or indigenous science in this case, and then also between contemporary data, despite, again, these sort of temporal distances between people. So we can look back at stories that people have from the community and the land, from grandparents or great grandparents, or even from the archives, right? If we're looking at records and documents. And then we can hear from people today, and then we can see what overlaps and what continues to relate and continues to have significance today. So I feel like that's one way of thinking about all of this is synchronicity, but using like the concept of like synthesis to integrate tribal needs and knowledge with campus resources and tools while supporting student experiential learning. That's our idea, or, trying to bridge these gaps in our university and tribal relations. And then synergy, combining research efforts to provide effective data coordination and analysis for tribes through participatory research and community engagement. And so like kind of playing up on all of our strengths, marrying them up to find solutions or propose solutions to any existing challenges that the community members are facing. But I think about synchronicity as a whole, as well as like, it's one of those overarching terms like survivance. Next slide. And then we really are taking to heart, I feel like the concept of data sovereignty, especially, because we have such three excellent researchers, which I would say is Dr. Stewart, Dr. Huning, and Dr. Hagedorn. So again, their goal is sharing publicly available data sources and materials from USGS on or near tribal lands with tribal partners to make them aware of how much data is available. They might have an EPA department or a cultural department that knows some of this, but I feel like what they're going to bring to the table and share is going to be really enlightening for most of our partners. We really do want to listen to tribal needs about groundwater data and changing snowpack, and think about groundwater recharge. And then again, we've been identifying potential sites to work together to support tribal data analysis and for tribal water resources. So again, the Tule River Tribe recently reintroduced beavers to their waterways. So we're curious about that connection to their ecosystem. And then, as I said previously, the Kumeyaay Land Conservancy has an old grove apple orchard amongst like this canopy of oak trees and one of their sites. And so how can we turn this into a site where people can tend it and then harvest from it and make it really useful to the community? And we have a couple other projects, but we didn't add those in. So I think that's where we're at the moment. Is that my last slide? I don't know if Ben and Kelly, I don't think they can chime in, but they're on here if you want to ask questions. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Teresa. We'll have a chance to do Q&A, and we can allow any of our team members to answer. So thank you to all of our speakers. What you heard today was just an overview. As Teresa said, and as you probably heard, there are lots of moving parts and new things emerging. I think that's been the really exciting thing about the way these partnerships have evolved, because a lot of it's come from being in the same space together and just generating ideas as they come and figuring out how.
Megan, you did cut off for 1 second.
Am I back?
You're back. Yep.
Okay. I don't know where I dropped off, but figuring out where we can work together to advance collective priorities and bring that Western science that can complement traditional ecological knowledge, Indigenous perspectives, and advance, those goals that we have together for protecting the land and being more resilient in the face of climate change, both from an ecological perspective, but also from a human perspective and a cultural perspective. So thank you to all of you for sharing those overviews. I'm gonna stop sharing so we can see folks and see where we are with Q&A. Do we have anybody who has questions?
No questions at this time that have come through, but feel free to raise your hand if you have questions now and ask.
And I'd also invite anybody on the panel who'd like to ask a question of anybody else, or just comment on something that you've heard or you didn't get to hear that you know about. One thing I did want to mention is that you saw UC Santa Barbara mentioned in some places, and you heard Helen talk about UCR's natural reserve system, and you heard UVA mention San Diego State's field station program or field station at Santa Margarita. Those are all part of our Living Labs program that you're going to hear about on October 17th. I'll give some more information about the upcoming dates for all of those, but that is another part of what we're doing. And as you can sort of see, connects even within our different focal programs. We don't sort of stay in one lane. We're definitely connecting on multiple fronts. And so all of that is engaged in terms of research and working with students and bringing community to these places. So that's another way that we are engaging. And that's one of Santa Barbara's larger roles. So you will see them when we have that session on the October 17th. So please join us for that. But I just wanted to highlight that that is another aspect where some of our universities are involved. And actually we have partners from the Native American Land Conservancy as well that participate in that part of our program.
This is a tangent, but it's related to Becca, right? Becca, you do the environmental justice, right, center. So that was one thing I talked about with Emily, was trying to connect. So I need to get a Zoom between the three of us, because she does need resources and additional help and sort of planning for what she's doing. She was nominated as the chair. And she is a practitioner and very knowledgeable, but she's like, we don't have infrastructure the way that she thinks it could develop into it. So I was like, well, let's partner with it as well, because I knew you were on the call. So I didn't want to forget to say it, because now I'll remember to do the email and we can talk.
Yeah, just to contextualize, so another initiative that SDSU is another collaboration that is related to Connects, although it is a separate project, is the Center for Community Energy and Environmental Justice. And I'm just putting that website, website. I can't talk and text at the same time right now into the chat. But yeah, I mean, I know we've talked about all the moving parts for Connect, but there is a larger sort of portfolio of projects, and that's one of them that I think has relevance to how universities are able to support ongoing initiatives led by community, and just directed by community members and priorities. So that's another project. If anyone else is interested in hearing about that, we can talk about that as well. But Teresa, absolutely. Yes, let's talk more.
And that's a great one to mention, because part of our goal here is to work to bring resources to community-based organizations, community serving organizations, be they a nonprofit, a tribal government, whatever it is. And so that is one avenue to not only, support the work, but to help people build that capacity to continue to do what they want to do and do more. Yuvia.
I have a question for Olivia, because I missed the Yamai that you were talking about, and I was just curious if you guys are planning to do it again soon, and if I can join and some of my students do.
Yeah, that's a great question. I know that there was actually they just presented at UCSD over the weekend. So I know they're out doing a lot of different presentations related to the book. But I don't have specific plans to bring them back unless I do it again in the class, the California Indian class, which I teach every spring. So it might be something that I do again as I start planning for that class for next semester. But nothing concrete as of yet. But I'm glad to know that there's interest, and I mean it's an incredible workshop and presentation. So yeah, I will definitely consider doing it again.
Sorry, missed it. It's just hard to keep up with all of the amazing things that are happening, but yeah,
I know.
hearing your thoughts. Thank you.
Of course.
And we spent some time talking about fall plans for speakers and things, and we haven't made it to spring semester yet. So Olivia, we can always put that on our potential docket. Go ahead, Helen.
So this is a question that maybe an attendee should ask but I'll ask it because I wonder about this myself, and I think it would be good for us to talk about it, you know, in the context of this webinar. Is so, you know, this project has got one more year left on it, and there's a lot of stuff going on, like so much stuff going on. And when the money runs out, what then? So if some of the leadership team could weigh in on that.
Sure, that's a great question. It's the one that has weighed on my mind since the moment we started drafting the proposal, because it was so important for me, and I think for everybody who joined on this project, that this climate action money go into the hands of community, be it community on campus, community within tribes, community that nonprofits are coordinating, right? Community can mean a lot of different things. But I felt like it was really important that some of those different communities dictate what it was that they wanted to see and do together. And what does climate action mean to you? Because it means something different to each one of us. We can't, I think we're all worried about what happens with climate change and the ways that it impacts our lives and impacts our region. But we have different focuses. And so, you know, that was part of the goal. However, that means that, you know, that we provided resources, and that those in the nature of a grant, the resources run out at the end of the grant. However, we have always had a focus on trying to figure out where are the opportunities to continue bringing forward those priorities and the things that we have built so that we can sustain them. We can sustain that elevated capacity that we were able to accomplish over the period of the grant. And so I think that looks like a couple of different things, because while I have loved having this partnership come through SDSU in this particular opportunity, it's not always ideal for community partners to partner with a university that has a lot of administrative hurdles to get money to you and to process paperwork and those sorts of things. And so I think it probably looks like making sure that foundations and grantors are able to work directly with our community partners, elevating the work. We actually have a one-year snapshot that we've put together of all of the accomplishments of this partnership that we're going to be sharing out pretty soon here. So our partners can take those to funders and say, this is what we have been able to do together, and wrap up their own portfolios to show what they individually have accomplished through Connect, so they can get the support to sustain that. I actually think that's a great role for the center that Becca shared. CJ is what we call it for short. That's another great role. How can we connect them with those resources to apply for more grants or more continued support? And then of course, you know, I'd love to have some additional funding come to the university, because this coordination, this like bringing community in and having guest speakers and having field trips, that like getting out into these places and being, you know, with the land, are important things that we don't always have enough resources for within universities, especially in lean times, which, you know, we're looking at with California's state budgets coming up. So that has always been at the top of mind since we wrote the proposal, and we have some ideas about how we want to try and build that out in the next year. And we'll be talking with our partners tomorrow, in fact, about some of our priorities, about how we work and move forward in the next year with the plan for beyond that second year.
Yeah, I mean, I think just to reiterate, it is a real priority that Helen mentioned, to be able to continue these initiatives. There's been such tremendous, exciting progress and developments, and we are definitely committed. I mean, I think all the we's that are on the call are really committed to seeing it continue. So it is a priority to make sure that we're able to identify additional funds, and that is something that are going to be working on this year, to be able to make sure that the work can continue in all its various forms.
Yeah, and that might look different for different partners. And so we want to make sure that that is flexible to best meet the needs of each individual partner. And so we'll be working with different groups to figure out what does that look like for them, so the support can continue to get to that next stage.
Would that be helpful to maybe develop a, you know, like a list of potential opportunities that everybody can constantly monitor and maybe put it in the web page. And so
Conveniently, I think our partners at CJ already have something sort of like that. Yeah, absolutely. Well, and being on the hunt, right, for new ones that are coming out that may not have made it into the CJQ, that come up that we think have in particular a great fit. Plus, I think, you know, maybe looking beyond, actually definitely looking beyond grant funding. Are there some foundations and endowments that really want to invest not only in the projects, right? It's a little bit easier to get funding for projects, but for that capacity, right? The program support, the people that make it happen, which is sometimes really hard to get funding for. Because, you know, people keep all of this running. And so I think that's really important to sort of, we want to do this deep dive with each partner to figure out what are your needs. Is it having that program support, that staff to keep moving forward? Or is it the next project or something that you're, you know, really excited to do and want support to help get to the place where you can do it? Any other questions, thoughts you want to share, opportunities to engage? We've heard all, and I think those are all fantastic. I think one of my most favorite things has been these things that come up that we never planned for, wasn't on our radar when we first started, and it's just emerged. I mean, Teresa, I think you mentioned some great ones where there were some ideas, but it looks like you're expanding as you guys grow your relationships and partnerships together. I know some of our existing relationships at SDSU have grown. For example, working with La Jolla Band of Luiseno Indians on their cultural burn. Clarissa, one of our postdocs, and David, one of our research partners, professors here, are helping to support, tracking the results of their cultural burn. And it wasn't something that we wrote down. It wasn't something that we initially planned to do, but it's something they said, it would be really great if we could do this. And so, joining together to make that happen. So that's really what this is all about, is just being in relationship with one another, sharing space together to figure out where those mutual needs are, or the opportunities to work together, that reciprocity. So it's been really exciting for me, and I hope it's been very exciting for the other folks on the call. I mean, I see the wonderful things happening. Sometimes it's something like this, it takes a little bit to get going, but then once you're going, it's like you can hardly keep up with how fast it's moving. And I feel like we're entering that stage, which is sometimes scary and a little exhausting, but definitely fulfilling and super rewarding. Go ahead,
Thank you, Megan, for all your work.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And thank you, Megan. I have a question actually for Helen too, because if you can expand on you were talking about how you incorporated in collaboration with the Climate Science Alliance, some of the modules about cultural burning into the classes. And could you tell us about how that the process and how it's working?
Oh yeah.
Is
Yeah.
it the trunk modules that they built? And I think that it would be amazing to have it. Maybe we're already doing it, but in biology, it would be amazing. Sorry, Helen.
Yeah, so there was that Southwest Climate Conference, and Climate Science Alliance had some, I don't know, they did some workshop as part of that, and they recorded the materials. And so those materials are on their website. And so I refer students, because my course is online, so it's all recorded videos. So I've recorded some videos, but the way I get diversity into the class is by using other people's videos as well. So I have used material from that Climate Science Alliance have provided on their websites, and then also as a result of going to that conference. So that was at the beginning of the Resilient Restoration Project. That conference was, because it was during the pandemic, I think it was all online, so everything was recorded. And so I used a lot of materials from that conference because it was about, particularly the days that I attended, it was about climate change and it was about tribal stewardship. And so it was really relevant to my global change biology class. And then I followed up some of the speakers and presenters. I followed them up and looked at their materials as well, and post those as well. Because I don't want to be speaking for Native Americans, because I don't know what I'm doing. So I've been going straight to the source. And it is also a way for my students to see, to hear different voices and see, range of people who are involved in conservation and land stewardship and so forth. And I'm happy to. I think didn't we talk about having, and I think we have it, and I haven't added anything to it, but didn't we talk about having some sort of repository where we could put all kinds of materials that for teaching?
Yes, so we are compiling materials for course content materials folks may want to use, but we also have our partners from the Climate Science Alliance here who can speak directly to some of the materials that Helen is referencing.
Hi, everyone. You have the whole team in here. I'm Amber Paris, the Climate Science Alliance. And we have Kara, Jeanette, and Diane with us. Thanks so much for bringing up our actually meaningful engagement training is what you were referencing from our Southwest Adaptation Forum. And so we did create a whole web page that includes kind of the very kind of beginnings of that training with the video recordings, and that was put together by a group of Indigenous leaders from across the Southwest. But that really was kind of the initial seed of kind of a bigger vision around kind of meaningful engagement that our team is working on, led by Althea Walker and Will Madrigal Jr. So we're really working on expanding that and really helping to, kind of give people space to understand what it means to be a good partner, and especially could have our non-tribal colleagues who want to work with tribes and kind of don't know how to get started or could use some additional support. That's really what that training is all about. So we are ramping up as part of our Connects project in advancing our stewardship pathways training. So we want to just be able to create more of these opportunities, more of these resources, and really the space for people to be on the land together, to get to know each other, and to really understand the incredibly important leadership role our Indigenous colleagues play in moving us forward in this climate changed world, and really uplifting that Indigenous stewardship. And kind of a bigger theme that we have in the Alliance is really the co-stewardship of all ancestral lands. And that's part of one piece of kind of many different pieces that we're really trying to support our partners in doing that. So thanks for sharing that. We can drop into the chat the link to the existing meaningful engagement page. And if there's folks who are interested in learning more about those trainings, we will be rolling out some of those trainings in the beginning of 2025. And they always are in partnership with our tribal colleagues who are from that place where the non-tribal partners want to work. So this is also part of really understanding whose land you stand on and being able to start to create space for conversations and relationship through these kind of, opportunities to be together and to listen and learn from each other. So thanks for that, Helen. I appreciate it. And thanks for the team for, all the good work.
Thank you so much. Okay, well, we are at time. I'm so glad to have had everyone here. And I just wanted to share, as we're at the 3:30 hour, join us, please, October 17th. You'll hear about our living labs, those research reserves and the natural reserves that are managed by the Native American Land Conservancy, all providing that place to get to the land and experiment with climate adaptation strategies. November 19th, we'll hear about our demonstration, our pilot projects. December 3rd, you can come hear about the stewardship pathways trainings that help build capacity with community members with trainings. learning about different stewardship techniques and hearing from different perspectives about how to approach those things. And then finally, January 7th, how to maybe take some of those skills and develop some entrepreneurial endeavors. There's some training for people who maybe want to start their own business focused on stewardship that would bring not only, that stewardship to the land, but also economic development to communities that's centered on that relationship between people and the land. So if you want to stay up to date on any of those sessions or anything we're up to, please subscribe to our newsletter and you can hear all about this. You can follow us on Instagram and you can read about the stuff we've been doing on our blog. So thank you all so much for joining us, and I hope you'll come back and join us on our next one. Thank you.